But it's okay because I'm a girl. So
Yeah.
hashtag be girly. So Hebrews 11:1 says this. Faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things we cannot see. Yes. I want y'all to read that. What you doing to my brother? Okay, ready? Faith.
Confidence that we hope for
Will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things we cannot see.
Yes. So from there, we're going to hit on our big idea now. And this is what, while I'm talking tonight, this is what I want you guys to be thinking about the whole time. Faith is a relationship with God. Your faith is a direct reflection of where your relationship with God is. I like to repeat this. It emphasizes. I think I took one teach class, and I think I remember something about emphasis. So, here we go again. Faith is a relationship with God. Your faith is a direct reflection of where your relationship with God is. Tonight we're going to be looking at 3 key aspects or key attributes of what a faithful relationship with God looks like. So these are what we're going to be concentrating on. 1, faith is trust. 2, faith is active. And 3, faith is agreeing with God's word, even when it's contrary to circumstances.
Talk about it.
I'll repeat it again. Alright. Because, like I said, I like to repeat. 1, faith is trust. 2, faith is active. And 3, faith is agreeing with God's word, even when it's contrary to circumstances. Yes? Alright. So let's do this then. 1, faith is trust. Trust is the basis of a relationship. So faith is a relationship with God. It is the basis of our faith. We were created to be relational people. So whether it be family, friends, relationship, romantically, we all have been in a relationship. Would you be in a relationship with someone you didn't trust? No. And if you are, we can probably talk about that later on. That might be something else.
Right.
Well, for me, when I think of faith is trust, even when Sarah was speaking, I was thinking of my journey here to Texas State and my journey to where I am now. And whether I knew it or not, and I didn't know it at the time, I can tell you now, my first step into this journey was trust. Here in Texas State, our Every Nation team here, we love evangelism. We love it. We love God Test. We love sharing our story. We love hearing about what Jesus has done in our lives. And that's actually how I was reached on this campus. I was stopped randomly in Evans, which is a really ratchet building. I don't understand.
Never had class there.
But if you want started from the bottom, that was the political science building, and now we meet in here. So I started from the bottom, and now I'm here.
Oh, God.
But anyways, I was stopped by this guy named Rob, and he was like, "Hey, do you know God?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know God." Like, duh. I was born and raised in a church. I actually have some of my friends who go to that church and have been there with me. And I took that for granted. I went every Sunday. I did everything I was supposed to do, but I never formed a relationship with God like I should have. And because of that, by the time I got to college, I was a walking identity crisis. Like, that is the best way to put it. I knew what the Bible said, like the back of my hand. I can quote you John 3:16. I can quote you everything, but I didn't apply it to my life. So I was walking around and I was like, okay, I see these things, but I don't see it in my own life, so I'm going to try to find the answer somewhere else. And that somewhere else was party, that somewhere else was alcohol, that somewhere else was everything that wasn't God. And so when this guy stopped me and he was like, "Hey, do you know who God is?" I was like, "Yes." And in my head I was like, why is he talking to me? And so he just continued super friendly, and he's like, at the end of it, he's like, "Well, you seem like a great person, and I want you to go to a small group, so I'm going to give you my friend's number." And in my head, and I was again like, okay, yeah. And in my head I was like, H no. Straight up. That's exactly what it was. I was like, no, prideful, like to the T, but that's exactly how I felt. So I get to my apartment, and I'm sitting in my apartment, and I'm sitting down there, and I just hear, what are you living for? What is it you're chasing? Because if you're chasing for something and you haven't found it yet, then why not? Why are you still doing this? And I remember sitting there, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I know these things. What am I doing? And the answer was nothing, a whole lot of nothing. Like, if I'm going to be real, I was chasing things I didn't need to be chasing. So I picked up my phone and I said, the girl's name was Leslie, and I was like, hey Leslie, yeah, my name is Jessica Betts, and I heard that you have a church here, and I've been going to church, and no, I hadn't, but I've been saying that. So I would just like to check out your small group. Super saved answer, it's okay. And she was like, yeah, come on down, like, come on over. And so I remember sitting there, and I was like, all right, God, here we go. That was trust. Trust and faith go hand in hand. Faith is total trust in God's character. That means 100%. I've told this to a couple of my girls who I disciple that you can't be half pregnant. You either are or you aren't. And it sounds so funny.
That's
it's
right
like,
on.
wait, what? But it's true, you can't. And it's the same way with God. You
That's
can't
real.
half trust God. You either do or you don't. You're either pregnant or you're not. You either trust Him or you don't. If you say you trust Him in one thing, then you have to totally trust Him in everything else He says.
Yeah.
It takes trust that coming to small group for me, in my case, it took trust for me to believe that I would go there and I would find my answer. You know, it took trust for some of you guys to go to Campus Harvest. It took trust for some of you guys even to be here tonight. But the great news about that is we can trust God because He has first proved Himself to be trustworthy. It's awesome. So, now that we're on the trust train, we're like, yeah, God, I trust you. You're great, you're awesome, you're fantastic, your word says this, yes, I trust you, now what? Now begins our next part. Faith is active.
You better talk.
Yes, I love when people respond to me because I don't feel like I'm...
Got it. Yeah, Jess.
Yes!
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at James 2:14 to 17 right now. It says this. What good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warmed and filled, without giving them the things they need for their body, what good is that? So also, faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. How many of you guys have ever played the trust fall game?
Oh, God.
Yes? I didn't see a lot of hands, so that works out great.
Never.
All right. Well, we're going to play it
I
here
only play
tonight.
it with you.
So, if I can get, let me search around
Oh,
this
God.
room really fast. Marlette, you are the one.
Yeah, Marlette.
Y'all, look how beautiful Marlette is. Only because you're tiny. I'm going to be real with you. But, so who here has ever seen the trust fall game before or heard of it? You haven't? Oh, yeah. It's like this. I'm going to say, Marlette, turn around. And I'm going to ask you, you turn around. And I ask her, Marlette, do you trust me? Yes. Well, if you trust me, go ahead and fall back. Just kidding. I caught her, right? That's how that game works. What if I were over here?
Oh, Lord.
And I said, Marlette, you can turn around so you can see what we were working with here. All right, turn back around. Marlette, do you trust me? Yes. Are you sure? All right. And keep in mind, this is instantaneous, so once you do it, it's done.
Uh-oh.
All right, so what if I'm over here and I say, Marlette, do you trust me? I was all the way back there. She shouldn't, because I wasn't going to catch her. But we see our relationship with God like that sometimes. You know, we say, God, I trust you. Yes, your word says this. Or maybe it's just my first step and I'm just saying, you know, me going to small group. All right, God, I trust you, you know, but you feel like you're all the way down there. So when you tell me to go somewhere, I'm not going to go. That's not faith. That's not trust. Because true faith requires action. And you know, like I said, going to these events, that's the fallback. Going to this small group, that's the fallback. You know, going to Campus Harvest, that's the fallback. But Marlette trusted me to catch her because, one, we have that relationship. I would hope so, at least at this point. But two, she knew I was there because she could hear me. She was there with me. It's the same thing with God. If you're going to trust Him in something, you have to have that relationship with Him first. True faith is a relationship with God. Because if you don't have it, if you say, God, I trust you, but I'm not reading your word, God, I trust you, but I'm not going to small group, God, I trust you, but I'm not in relationship with people who are walking out. What happens when God tells you to do something?
Wow.
Do you do it? If you do, you have more faith than I did, because you have to have that relationship first. And that relationship is what's going to bring you through points like number 3. And this one, y'all, when I was reading the book, this is coming from the Faith to Live Life book, so if you won that, you're going to get it good. But I was reading through this book and I was thinking, you know, what is faith? What has God had to prove that faith is to me in my life? And when I got to this point, I was like, oh God, I don't want to put that in there because that's real. And that's hard, but it's what faith is, so we're going to talk about it. Faith is agreeing with God's word even when it's contrary to circumstance. For this, I'll be real. For me, it really was the hardest, or it is the hardest, because this requires you to do 2 things that sound like they should be a contradiction, but they aren't. Agreeing with God's word, even when it's contrary to circumstances, requires you to actively wait on God. And when we're here, we're like, oh man, like, we live in a culture that's always like, now. I want something now. I need this now. If it's not here, then it's not real, it's not mine, then no, I don't want it. I'm not going to wait. That's what we do, is it not? If it wasn't, then we wouldn't get free pizzas if they take less than 30 minutes. Dang. Or more than 30 minutes. And we wouldn't be waiting for it too, hoping to get that pizza for free, because the college struggle is real sometimes. No. Gumby, yes, $9.99. But really, it's a hard concept for us to grasp sometimes, but it's in that place. It's in that place where we're actively seeking God, but waiting on Him and His provision and His word, that we really have our chance for our faith to grow. And my favorite example of this is with a couple named Abraham and Sarah. So we're going to read Hebrews 11:11 to 12. By faith, Sarah herself received power to conceive, even when she was past age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. Therefore, from one man, and him as good as dead, were born descendants as many as the stars of the heaven, and as many as the innumerable grains of sand by the seashore. I'm gonna let y'all know I practiced saying innumerable because I didn't say it at first, but I got it down tonight. Yes, thank y'all. But there are 2 points I really want to break down and really want to speak to you guys about tonight. The first is this. Since she considered him faithful who had promised, because of this, they had this. They got the blessing. That didn't mean it was easy. Sarah hadn't had a child. She was like 90s. She was old. She was older than your grandparents. She was old. So I don't want y'all to think about your grandparents having kids or anything. But
Oh, Lord. We weren't until you said that. Yeah, that is. Oh, gosh.
But no, guys, she She was old. God had promised her a child years beforehand. You know, at this point, people are talking, and they're like, look, like, you're not going to get your child. Like, you're crazy. People are calling her crazy. She's probably frustrated. I mean, I wait like a year for something, or, well, I wait a month for something, and I'm like, ugh, like, is this coming? So can you imagine being told that, hey, you're going to be the mother and the father of many nations, and you haven't even had your child yet?
Wow. It's real.
That's where Sarah was. But look what she did. Since she considered him faithful who had promised, y'all, we serve a God who says yes, and he means yes. And we have to remember that. If God says something, he's proven to us that he is faithful. And when you think of your circumstance, when you think of whatever you're waiting for, when you think of where is this in my life right now, remember that God is faithful. Hold on to the fact that God is faithful. Do not hold on to the circumstance. And we're going to get to that next. And him as good as dead. The Bible literally says, as good as dead. Abraham was. What circumstance in your life do you feel is dead?
Talk.
Is there one? But look, because of this, because God is faithful, they saw the promise come to pass. Is your faith in your provision, or is your faith in the one who calls himself provider?
That's real.
Is your faith in the healing, or is your faith in the healer?
That was so
Wow.
good.
Is your faith, you know, if you're in a relationship and you're like, and you're invested in this, and those people leave you, were you invested in them, or were you invested in the God who said, I will never leave you and forsake you. I am the healer of broken hearts. Where is your faith? And do you believe that whatever situation you have in your life right now, whether it looks like it's not here yet, or you look at it and you're like, this is dead, God, this is dead. Do you not believe that God has the power to raise it back to life?
Yeah.
Because he did that. And he continues to do that in your life. So I want to conclude with this. A lot of times, I don't know about you guys, but when I think of faith, I always hear the story of a seed. Like, it never fails. If you hear faith, there's always a seed story to go along with it. I don't know if it's because of the mustard seed or just Jesus really liking seeds in the Bible. Because I guess he's working with the farmers, but he hears our seeds. And that's what it is. And I'm going to tell you what I thought faith used to look like. And I'm going to tell you why I was wrong. So to me, when I thought of faith, I was like, all right, so this is my seed. This is my seed of faith. It's actually like this because it's a mustard seed. But it's okay because it's going to grow into a big tree one day. But I take my seed and I plant it and I walk away and I say, God, I had faith in you. You know, there's my seed. I had faith in you, God. I planted it. But that's not faith, y'all. Think about our main idea again. It says faith is a relationship with God. In order for a seed to grow, there's a process that comes with it.
Yeah.
In order for my seed of faith to grow, I have to water it. In order for my seed of faith to grow, I have to weed it. And in order for my seed of faith to grow, I have to believe that one day the seed I planted will be that big mustard tree. You see, if I didn't believe that the tree would grow, I wouldn't water it. You know, if I didn't believe that God could heal, if God could do this, I wouldn't bother having a relationship with him. But because I believe that God is who he says he is, because he proves it in his word, he's proved it in my life, and I know he wants to prove it in yours too, we water that seed. We water that seed even before we see the sprouts come, like Abraham and Sarah did. Before they had that Isaac, before they had their child, before they became the father and mother of many nations, they were a couple praying and waiting to see God's word come to pass. But God is faithful. He is, he always will be, he always has been. And in return, we're faithful. That's the relationship. But, there's a big but here. This whole message would be completely useless if God didn't prove himself faithful to us.
Yeah.
We are faithful because he has been faithful
That's good.
and remains faithful. He said, we love because we were first loved.
That's real.
God proved he was faithful through Jesus Christ. On the cross, he died the death that we should have died. And he rose again, proving that he is Lord. That is what faith is. Faith is believing that. Faith is cultivating that relationship. And faith is trust. It's active. And it's believing in God's word, even when it's contrary to circumstances. So, right now, if I could get the ministry to song, prayer team.